it. With that, welcome everyone. It was fun chatting with you before the meeting started. Welcome to all our Rotarians and guests. It really is great to see you all on Zoom. I want to take a few minutes to thank you for responding to our meeting surveys. We send those out every week after the meeting and the meeting recap. Your comments are reviewed every week. The club strives to secure relevant speakers on key topics. We also continually strive to find speakers that bring unbiased viewpoints. So there were comments made last week regarding the balanced presentation of the topic. We want you to know there's a great deal of research and outreach that happens prior to turning the podium over to our speakers. So please continue to provide feedback, share your ideas on other speakers that may provide a balanced discussion. And thank you so much for your engagement and feedback. We are listening. In addition, another update to share is that the meeting last week did not download properly and it won't be available to our membership. That was due to the multiple devices that we were using during that meeting to support our really unique hybrid configuration. So apologies on that. Please join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our inspirational moment today is provided by Don Kane, who's a retired attorney in the oil and gas industry. Don, take it away.
Thank you, President Debbie. I was not aware of the discussion after last week's presentation, but my inspirational moment actually touches on that. Some of you may know that I'm a political junkie, and the thing that drives me most crazy about politics these days is the level of intense partisanship, the open hostility at times that has brought our political system to the point of near gridlock. We have significant challenges facing the country on a number of issues, ranging from infrastructure to immigration, and we have a very hard time getting things done. So it was a welcome change for me to listen to former Senator Tim Wirth at our meeting last week. Senator Wirth obviously comes to politics from the Democratic side of the aisle, but you heard this lifelong Democrat say how important it is for the country to have a healthy center-right Republican Party to balance what he hopes will be a healthy center-right, center-left Democratic Party. Now, it's true that Senator Wirth served before the recent period of total warfare in politics, when it was possible to get things done through compromise, through an effort to find common ground with people on the other side of whatever issue you were talking about. I may be a bit of a Pollyanna, but I like to believe that those days are not gone for good, that we can get back to a time of honest discourse, and respectful disagreement in politics. It concerns me that compromise is considered a dirty word in some political circles, an example of weakness or capitulation. So I went looking for some wise words on the nature and value of compromise. I found a few that I liked. One modern writer said, compromise is not about losing. It's about deciding that the other person has just as much right to be happy with the end result as you do. Evan Esar was an American humorist in the mid-1900s. He said, compromise is a settlement by which each side gets what neither side wanted. The last one is my favorite, maybe difficult to achieve. Ludwig Erhard was the Chancellor of Germany in the mid-1960s when we called it West Germany. He said, compromise is the art of dividing a cake in such a way that everyone believes he has the biggest piece. In Rotary, we make an effort to avoid the kind of political discussions that create conflict or tension within our diverse membership. I agree with this policy completely, but I don't think it violates our principles to encourage our members to be part of the solution, to contribute to a higher level of civility in political discourse. And to do that, we need to be open to compromise on the important issues of our day. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You know, I will tell you that was not planned. I didn't plant that seed. And it's just interesting to me that it fits really well into the welcoming comments. So how perfect, Don. Thank you so much. Next is our club secretary, Troy Szymanski, who is partner and fund manager of Outpost Fund. Troy.
Thank you very much, President Debbie. I want to start off by welcoming some of our guests today. First off, we have Beth Baker Owens, who is a guest of John Stewart. She's a realtor with Castle Real Estate and originally planned to join us in the past, but we're glad she's able to make it today. Also want to welcome guest Chris Beasley, who is here on behalf of President Debbie Beasley. Some birthdays for today and for the next this next week. I want to wish a happy birthday and ask you to join me in wishing a happy birthday to Rotarians Colleen, Bob, Jack, Jean, and Brian. So happy birthday from the Denver Rotary Club. We hope it is a great one. And then finally, some announcements. Don't forget to register for our hybrid meeting next Thursday, June 17th with Dr. Waleed Abdelhadi, who's the director of the CIRES at CU Boulder for our program, Earth from Space, The Power of Perspective. This is your last chance to register, as the deadline is today at 4 p.m. So keep an eye out for that link. It should be already in your email, but definitely plan to do that by right now if you haven't already. Our next virtual happy hour will be Wednesday, June 16th, which is next week at 5:30 p.m. The Zoom link is provided in our Tuesday meeting email. Save the date for our changing of leadership, where both President Debbie and DRCF President Carter pass the gavel to their successors, Ian Campbell and Sid Brooks. This is an evening celebration at the Warwick Hotel on June 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. with the cash bar and your first drink on us. Reservations will be sent out Monday. The Rotary office will be closed from June 25th through July 5th while Lauren is on vacation. I can speak from personal experience, having worked with Lauren over the last year, that this is well deserved. So keep that in mind and reach out to myself or President Debbie, or wait a second, that'll be after the handoff. Future President Ian, you're gonna have maybe some stuff to deal with depending on how much comes up. So let's let Lauren have some time. Questions? Need more information? Check our meeting recap email. It will all be in there and that'll go out right after this meeting concludes. President Debbie, back to you.
All right, thank you, Troy. Good news buckets. We have time today for that. Thank goodness, there's so much probably good stuff to share. So our Rotary Foundation Chair, Peg Johnston, who is a retired principal of Business Acquisitions Limited, will do our good news buckets. Peg.
Thank you. All right, unmuted. I want you all to know that this is your very last chance this year to tell good news, this year being the end of June. Will be our last red bucket. And I wanted to start by telling my good news, and that is that as the Rotary Foundation Chair for the International Foundation, our Club 31 has met its goals. Our goals this year have been to raise $50,000 for the annual fund, and we raised $51,600, just barely, but we did it. And on polio, our goal was 10,000, and we actually raised 16,900 for polio. So fabulous. And I want to thank all 87 members who contributed their $100 or more to the annual fund and to polio. Thank you very much. You're 87 people. And of those, 23 actually contributed $1,000 or more. So thank you for that. Want to let you know, as always, the minimum of $20 to share your good news, and to go to the link in the meeting recap, and that will tell you how you can donate your money, whether you have an account or you don't have an account. Just, it's My Rotary. And also for those of you who have not yet had a chance to donate to the Rotary Foundation, you can go to that link as well and just click on it and go ahead and make your donation. So I would ask all of you now to raise your hand on the toolbar. If you look for the reactions, you can click on raise hands, and we will go ahead and call on you for the last good news of the year. Andre, you're up.
Well, I'd like to pledge $100, and that is that my son Evan on Saturday got his second degree graduating as an electrician.
Wow. Second degree. Fabulous.
Yeah, he got a degree in marketing, didn't like it, and he went to school to be an electrician.
Okay, good for him. All right, let's see. Mark is next, I believe. Mark Donovan.
In honor of Debbie's last meeting and in extreme gratitude for tremendous leadership throughout the year, I'd like to pledge $100, please.
Fabulous.
Thank you, Debbie.
And Louise.
I have to make a pledge in honor of my 17-month-old grandson, Ever, who I hope will someday be a future Rotarian.
All right. Thank you. Chuck Everell.
My point today is to give a moment of gratitude to some fellow Rotarians. And I had a very close friend, have a close friend who has a son on the autism spectrum that just graduated from high school, has an interest in welding and science, but clearly has some things to do yet in the 3 or 4 years ahead as he gets ready for a career. And we were looking for a resource, called on the Whites and said, would you meet with us? And believe it or not, you're not surprised. Jim, Scott, and Eric all joined. We had lunch, had a great meeting, had a lot of great ideas. And I'm pledging $50 just to say thank you to the Whites for being, as we know, fabulous Rotarians.
Thank you. Thank you. And Jagdish.
Yeah, I just want to, my little girl who is in San Diego, not here with me in Denver, she got to do the morning announcements. She's 6 years old. She got to do the morning announcements at her little school. And she had a joke, which I'll share with the rest of the club. Why did the little boy throw the clock out the window? And the big answer to that is because he liked to watch time fly. And so that was her joke for the day, and I'll go ahead and pledge $25 just because I think it was a cool moment.
Wonderful. I love those. I love those kids' jokes. Anybody else? This is your last chance for the 2021 Rotary year. Any other hands?
John Klug? John, you have to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hello. Well, I'm glad to be back after almost 18 months in Mexico, which is a whole nother story. But I'd like to pledge $100, and I'm actually looking here at Judge Roy, who has been very instrumental in what I'm talking about. My grandson, Reggie, who is autistic, has just graduated from the law school at Rutgers University, which is an amazing accomplishment and something he did against many, many odds. He's also one of the very few Eagle Scouts in the country who struggles with autism as well. So we're incredibly proud of Reggie. He's now studying like 18 hours a day and will take the Colorado bar exam in July. So again, so proud. Thank you, especially to Judge Roy, who was very helpful along the way. And we're so proud of Reggie.
Thank you, John. That's wonderful. Anyone else? Anyone else? Good news before the end of the year. It's going.
Okay, I haven't figured out how to raise my hand electronically yet.
Okay,
this is
go
Shannon
ahead,
Stone.
Shannon.
Thank you. I'd like to put $100 in the bucket in honor of my youngest son, Alexander. He's moving into middle school, and it seems like a really big deal because he had to take on a big leadership role and manage his own time when it comes to working remotely through school. And he's just showed a lot of heart. And every night we go to bed and we put our hands on our heart and I ask him what's one thing he's grateful for. And he always says friends and family. And it's one of those things that just every night reminds you of the preciousness of a young person and what's important to them. And so in honor of Love and my son, I want to offer $100 into the bucket.
Fabulous. That's wonderful. Makes me teary-eyed too.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I can't see your hands if you're just raising them physically, so. I think that's it. Debbie, on and over to you.
Well, Peg, unbelievable job leading the Rotary Foundation this year and making those goals. I know you and I together look at the reports. Are we there? Are we there? Are we there? And those are two of the goals that we submit to Rotary as part of our goals as president for the year. So it's just really tremendous. And what an incredible year we've had to be able to say that we did it. And really, thank you so much, Peg.
If I could
for all
just add,
that fun good news. Go ahead, Peg. I'm sorry.
if I could just add one other piece, if any of you would like to know where you stand on your donations to the International Foundation or to polio, I have all those records. If you need help getting on the website to find information, just give me a call or shoot me an email and I would be very pleased to help you. So thank you all. Appreciate all your good news.
It was fun, good news today. Lots of good stuff. Rick Luthold will be introducing our speaker. Rick is our meetings and events vice president and is an incoming board of director. Rick is also the chairman of Sanderson Stewart. Rick.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that very much. Welcome all of you to our Thursday noon meeting. Many of you know that I was born and raised in Billings, Montana. And Montana is one of those places where you learn young to kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And if you've got some adversity in your life, you just deal with it. And as I grew older and raised my own children there, I found that that was a basis for a lot of heartache and turmoil and a lot of suicides in Montana, because we did not do a good job in that rural state with regard to acknowledging and understanding things like clinical depression and mental illness. And as I made the transition to Denver, became much more aware of and involved in programs that work with mental illness. I also have, my wife and I have had a personal dealing with that in our own family. A child who has suffered significantly with mental illness and have had to learn how to embrace that and embrace her and help her through the struggles that makes in life and to help her try to find a balance and a quality of life. And so I'm very excited today to introduce Michele Capots to talk with us today about her own path, her own significant travels with regard to depression and mental illness, and to look at what's occurred over this odd year that we've had, how that's driven folks, and to look at what we can do to further acknowledge, see, help those around us, help ourselves to do better with taking care of those folks with this terrible disease that afflicts so many in our society and so many who don't share that. So with that, I turn it over to you, Michele. If you want to, looks like you're still muted. If you want to unmute yourself, and we'll be anxious to hear about your history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you for that introduction. So I'm going to start by asking you to think of a day in your life that stands out. One day that stands above all others in your mind. Maybe it's the day you got married, or the day your child was born, or a certification that you received. A normal day that, for whatever reason, became extraordinary. For me, it was a different kind of day. I was driving on Beechwood Boulevard when I first got the thought. It would have been so easy. I'm slumped over, leaning my head against my hand that is pressed against the window of my red Honda Civic. It's taking all the energy I have to do the 20-minute drive home. One 18-wheeler passed me on the 2-lane road, and I just thought with the next one, I'll veer a little over the white line, a quick swerve to the left, and it'll all be over. As I drove past the park, I saw a couple on the lawn having a picnic, a man jogging. They made it look so simple. They're just enjoying life. But at 25, it was something I couldn't do anymore. I'd spend all day, every day with my hands trembling, my inside shaking. I lost all concentration and focus. And anytime I heard laughter in the office, I thought it was at me. I worked in an open office, not in cubicles where you could hide behind the partition, but just a row of desks, one after the other after the other. Everyone could see me, and I knew that they knew that I was coming undone. I saw another 18-wheeler up ahead, and now I'm not just scared of it, I'm also scared for myself. I'm going to talk today about my fall into clinical depression. Drinking and depression are intertwined for me. I can't talk about one without the other. I'm also going to talk about mental illness, what it is and what it isn't, the critical need to put one's self-care on a pedestal, and the mental wellness tools that give us the space to thrive. To an outsider looking in, I had everything going for me. A job as a newspaper reporter that I loved, an apartment in a very hip section of Pittsburgh above an architect's studio. It had high ceilings, lots of light, tons of windows, a sunflower sketched along the living room wall, and my very favorite, a purple front door. I worked 10-hour days covering school board and town council meetings in Pittsburgh suburbs, and then going to the local bar until 2 a.m. It's what we all did. I merely followed the crowd. But that habit only exasperated an already present drinking problem that started in my teens with the sudden death of my stepfather. And when it was time to leave the bar, I'm the one who always stayed for just one more, but it never was. It was getting harder and harder to come into work the next day. I'd come in hungover, still reeking of alcohol from the night before, sweating. I was a binge drinker, which means I didn't drink every day, but once I started, I couldn't stop. Rarely I could have one, more than likely I had 10. I always like to say I drank until the switch in my head was flipped, and it always made me irresponsible and mean. But lately, even that had stopped working. I just had this hollow space inside me that no matter how much I drank, I couldn't fill. At first, I thought it was the hangovers that were making me feel so disconnected and all alone, but it never went away. It was like a song that was stuck on the same lyric, playing over and over and over, telling me that everything I did was wrong. Soon I didn't want to be around my friends at the bar anymore. I didn't want to be around anyone at all. So I'd come directly home from work to that amazing apartment and only feel safe when I closed the door behind me. Once there, I'd walk into the kitchen and pour myself a drink, carry myself into the bedroom and crawl into bed, where I'd watch the clock all night change from 12 to 1 to 2, my mind taunting me that I was a failure. I've thought about this countless times. Was it my depression that caused my drinking, or my drinking that caused my depression? In the end, it doesn't really matter. My situation is far from unique, often called a co-occurring disorder or dual diagnosis. Whatever it's called, it seemed to go on forever. Pretending everything was okay became my full-time job. But driving home that night and thinking about driving into the path of the 18-wheeler, that was a wake-up call, and I knew I needed help. So when you're 25 and you're in crises, or really anytime you're in crises, what do? I ran to my mom, who took one look at me and knew something was wrong. My black hair, once straight and shiny, was frizzy and matted. I had large dark circles under my eyes, and I'd lost a lot of weight since the last time she saw me. She took me off to a doctor, a general practitioner, who gave me one of those fill in the circle tests with the number 2 pencil. Does anyone remember those? It asked questions like, I feel sad, A, sometimes, B, rarely, C, always. I've lost interest in things I used to enjoy, A, sometimes, B, rarely, C, always. I was straight C's. And even though I thought the test was pointless, I decided to be honest as I filled it out. I left that appointment that day with 3 things: a prescription for Prozac, a diagnosis of clinical depression, and an order of 2 months off work so that I could heal. I was mortified. I was worried, how am I going to tell my boss? Am I going to lose my job? And most importantly to me at that time, what is everybody going to think? It was decided for me that no one trusted my mind frame to live on my own. So I had to move out of that amazing apartment with the purple door, and at 25, move home into my bedroom, into the old bedroom in the house I grew up in. Now I really felt like a failure. My friends are getting promotions, buying houses, getting married, and I'm in bed with the covers over my head, the shades drawn, convinced I ruined the last 25 years of my life and that I'm an alcoholic. All of that knowledge only made me want to kill myself even more. I knew how I was going to do it and when I was going to do it. But when the time came, something always stopped me. Whether it was my faith, my Catholic upbringing, or the fact that I never paid attention in chemistry, I'm grateful that I was able to find that reprieve. The days turned into weeks, and they turned into months, and they all started to blur together. But hope is a funny thing. It can come when you least expect it. I had an aunt that used to show up on her lunch hour every day like clockwork. I'd hear the doorbell, peek out the window, and then duck under the windowsill so she wouldn't see me. Once I heard the car leave, I'd crawl back in bed. But she kept coming back every day. One day I decided to let her in, and she convinced me to go for a walk at a nearby lake close to my mom's house. I don't think we said a word. We walked in silence, but my legs moved. I felt the fresh air on my face, the sun. I didn't know it then, but those were my first steps toward healing. After that, I started to take more steps. My best friend Jen tried to teach me how to play soccer. I'm not athletic. Chess. She was trying anything she could think of to interrupt the constant flow of negativity that consumed my mind. And slowly, it started to work. As the fog in my brain cleared, my sister convinced me to try a 12-step meeting, just to know for sure that I didn't belong there. So one Tuesday, I drove around looking for a meeting that I found online. I chose one that was far enough away from my mom's house and my office so I wouldn't see anyone that I knew. It was dark that night, and I remember being scared. The directions told me to make a left down a long driveway, and at the bottom of it was a church with all of its lights off and not a single car in the parking lot. I laughed out loud and said, "See, nobody even comes to these." Relieved, I drove back up the hill, and across the street I saw a fellowship hall with all of its lights on and people inside eating and drinking. I pulled into the parking lot and watched them. I realized they were laughing, something that seemed so foreign to me. A car pulled up next to me and I watched as a man got out and thought, he didn't look like an alcoholic. An alcoholic to me was always a man, someone my grandfather's age in a raincoat drinking out of a brown paper bag. But this man had on khakis, a light blue polo shirt, and a blazer. I ran over and asked him what goes on in there. I wanted to make sure it wasn't Bible study or a knitting group. The man just looked at me for a long time and then said finally, "Are you lost?" With that, I burst into tears because yes, at that moment, I felt more lost than I'd ever been in my entire life. I decided to go inside with him that day. And while the drinking and depression went hand in hand, so did the healing and recovery. While both are crucial to my overall well-being, I want to spend the rest of the time talking about depression and mental wellness. When it was finally time to return to work, I was terrified. Everyone knew where I was and what had happened. I worked in a strip mall and I pulled into the parking lot and parked far away from my office. When I found the courage to go inside, the door felt like a ton of bricks when I opened it. And unfortunately for me, it had one of those bells that ding anytime someone enters. Marcy, the administrative assistant, looked up and ran over and gave me a hug and said, "Welcome back." I felt my body start to soften and relax. And then she whispered something in my ear that told me that everything was going to be all right. She said, "I take Prozac too." And in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone, and it gave me the strength and courage I needed to see the rest of the team. When we provide an open space to talk about mental illness, it helps to decrease the stigma associated with it. COVID has brought the conversation to the forefront, but it is certainly nothing new. My experience was during a time when depression wasn't as widely discussed or even understood. But I have found when you share your problem with someone else, no matter what that problem is, it cuts it in half. By voicing it, it loses its power. I didn't realize it then, but we are never alone. Many things have helped me get and stay well, including appointments with my psychiatrist, therapy, and medication. A lot of people have a reluctance when it comes to medication, but for me, I'll gladly take it if it'll prevent me from being where I was. 25 years later, I still take Prozac, and I'm a longtime member of 12-step communities. A 12-step program is what worked for me, but it is by no means the only path to wellness. In fact, there's no one thing. It's all of these components working together that have helped me to be my very best self. I'd like to share 4 mental wellness tools with you that, in addition to medication, have changed my life dramatically. The first is exercise. We all know how important it is, but for me, it's the one that can be so easily overlooked. I'm too hot, I'm too cold, I'm not dressed appropriately, I always have the perfect excuse. But during my depression, it was those walks with my aunt that were my first steps toward healing. So now I know when I'm stressed or overwhelmed to move my body. Maybe I can't go for a walk or a run right then, but walk around the house, do jumping jacks, stretch. Moving my body shifts my mindset to a more positive place. I have learned that mood follows action, and research shows that exercise is the most important thing we can do to align our bodies and minds. The next tool is one not as widely discussed, and that's journaling. I used to think I didn't have the time to write, and honestly, processing my thoughts and emotions was the last thing I wanted to do. But I have found writing in a journal consistently gives me the opportunity to dream big and to make those dreams come true. Ideas come to life when we write them on paper. Whether it's a notebook or a napkin, using a pen, I have found writing pen to paper is powerful for me, and research shows that handwriting has similar effects in our brain often found in meditation. Journaling is a great way to gauge your progress, to look back at old journals to see how far you've come or how far you still need to go. When I take the time to write, to simply check in with myself, it changes the course of my day, and it even brings me peace of mind. The next tool is one we were talking about before the meeting started, and that's gratitude. The word was not in my vocabulary until I stopped drinking, but once I discovered it, it opened a whole world for me that I never knew existed. It was in my very first 12-step meeting that I heard someone refer to themselves as a grateful recovering alcoholic, and I thought, how ridiculous. How could anyone ever be grateful for that? But over time, I started to understand that what I thought was the worst thing that ever happened to me turned out to be the best thing. There are many ways to practice gratitude. I like writing down 3 things I'm grateful for every night before I go to sleep. I used to find when my head hit the pillow that my mind would race about all the things I didn't get done that day or things I wish I could have done differently, but that when I focused on the good, I was able to fall asleep faster. The first time someone suggested it, I didn't know what to write. And then when I did, I found that I was repeating the same things over and over again. But gratitude can be found in the smallest things. I'm grateful for enjoying my morning coffee, or even finding just the right parking space. Other times I can be overcome with spontaneous feelings of gratitude, like being thankful for my job because I remember what it was like when I didn't have one. In my experience, it's very difficult to be unhappy or negative when we have a grateful heart. The last tool is one that not everybody likes, and I usually get the biggest reaction from. I'm going to talk about the M word, meditation. I used to have a love-hate relationship with meditation. I had a lot of preconceived notions about it and the types of people that engaged in it. I thought you had to light incense, sit cross-legged on the floor, and that everything had to be completely quiet, which was a problem because I couldn't quiet my mind. But then I found nature as a form of meditation, a walking meditation. I realized that when I walked my dog in the morning or went on a hike, that my mind felt completely silent. This worked for me for a number of years, and some of the benefits I received were greater appreciation for the present moment, better clarity and focus in my day, and peace of mind. Today, I like guided meditations, and there's an app I like to use called Insight Timer, which is a variety of meditations on stress, anxiety, confidence. Meditation has become a non-negotiable in my day, and I practice it sometimes before I have a big meeting or even have to make an important phone call. When I practice meditation and focus on my breathing, I'm able to be calm and centered. These are only a few of the techniques I use to achieve mental wellness and overcome any obstacles that are standing in my way. And there still are obstacles. The difference is that today I have tools I can use to defeat them. But even with those tools, the question remains, what can we do to help those around us who are still suffering? I believe raising our awareness by extending one form of kindness to someone, maybe it's a call or a text or an invitation to coffee or for a walk. Sometimes, like with my aunt, words don't even need to be said. Just being present for somebody is enough. I know firsthand what a big difference these small gestures can make. Before striving to achieve mental wellness on a daily basis, I was just going through the motions, living life on autopilot. I didn't know how to learn and experience the most I could out of life, even though I wanted to thrive. I would spend so much of my time fighting my mind. But now the majority of the time, my mind is free and it's at peace, which creates the most beautiful feeling of all, feeling happy, feeling joyful, and finally feeling free. 25 years ago, when I wanted to drive into the path of that 18-wheeler, I never would have imagined that I'd be standing here with you today, sharing my story and living a life that is beyond my wildest dreams. It's been a privilege and an honor to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I asked folks to send some questions to me in chat, so I will share those with you. The first is your occupation is now as a coach, and what kind of training did you need to take for that, if any? And then kind of what does your day look like today?
Yes, so I have had training as well, certifications. I've had 2 certifications for coaching. And my day-to-day looks very different each day. I see clients throughout the day and fit in some of my emails and calls and things that I need to do as well in between them.
Here's the next question. Can you speak to the importance of both medications and balance of those in therapy?
Absolutely. Medication, as I said in my talk, a lot of people have a reluctance to take it, but I so desperately never wanted to return to where I was. Medication can be difficult, and I won't say that I didn't have any struggles trying to find the right cocktail of medication. And I believe therapy is equally as important as that. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical background. I can only speak to my experience with medication and therapy, but both were crucial for me in healing.
Great, great. Another question, is depression a chemical imbalance or induced by lifestyle or a combination of both?
It is a chemical imbalance, but I think it can also be induced by lifestyle. When I went through my depression, as I said also in my talk, at the time, there weren't, from the outside looking in, it looked like I had everything going for me. I had friends, I had a job that I loved. I wasn't under an enormous amount of stress. There was no one life event that was the trigger. It just came on. But as I look back on it, it came on slowly. It didn't just all come on all at once. It started with the negative thoughts that would be here and there throughout my day. And then it got to be that the negative thoughts got to be debilitating, that I couldn't I couldn't control them and I couldn't get past them, which is then when I sought help.
What is your opinion on Jordan Peterson and his approach to fighting depression?
I believe depression is, I'm back to what I just said. I believe depression is lifestyle and a chemical imbalance.
There are a number of really incredible comments that have come in that went to everyone. I'm not sure if you've got your chat open, Michelle, to see them. Comments ranging from so moving. Thank you for giving voice to this journey. Great presentation. What a story. Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Michelle. Brave, moving, and inspirational. So hopefully you see all of those. There's a couple more.
I do. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's not, as I said, also, COVID has brought the conversation to the forefront and it has everybody talking about it right now, but it is definitely nothing new. And I think one thing with COVID that's worth mentioning is someone that was suffering during COVID, and now that things are returning to a certain degree of normal, a new normal, and people are moving back into that, the person that is suffering is not necessarily going to be able to move with that. So that's why it's so important to extend that form of kindness, call that person, text that person, reach out to that person. And again, nonverbal communication, knowing that someone is there, made a world of difference in my own life.
We have recorded this, and another question that came to me is how can we share this with a friend? So I'm not sure if we reach out to you and what if there's anything we need to do, Rick, to make it available. We do make it available, the recording, to our club members, but can we share it beyond that? And if we need to talk about that offline or something, we can.
Yeah, well, President Debbie, we'll take that up offline. There's some protocols there that
Okay.
And you and I can talk about and that kind of thing. But, yeah, that'd be good.
I think that speaks to how moving and how impactful and important this information is. I do have another question. Where is the best place for a person to turn if they feel they need help?
The best place to turn, there's two places, and I should have the number right in front of me and I don't, but absolutely, if someone can call up the Suicide Hotline if you're in crises, is absolutely the most important place to call if you feel you are in crises, would be to call the Suicide Hotline. And again, I would say that trusting one person to share your feelings with. A lot of times, depression is so isolating and it makes you feel like you are all alone. But when you have the courage to confide in somebody where you are in that moment, it helps to cut the problem in half. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel as looming and you are making that reaching out for that help.
Now, Michelle Maldonado in our club put into the chat the suicide prevention lifeline phone number. Another question just popped in, and since we have time, I'm going to keep going. What is the best way for us to help a friend? How do we phrase our desire to help without coming off as aggressive or holier than thou?
I think that in my experience during my depression, I was in bed literally for most of my days. It was very difficult for me to get out of bed. So it was clear that there was a problem. There was no question as to whether or not something was not right. It was blatant that I was in trouble, that I was in crises. But if there's someone that you're worried about and you don't want to come off in being too worried or turning them in the other direction, simply ask. It's people fear that suicide, the word suicide or the word depression is going to put that idea in somebody's mind, but it doesn't. Ask them how they are feeling. If this is something that they're thinking about, this could get them talking. I don't think anybody, I personally would not have viewed anyone coming off as holier or thinking they were any better or different from me if they were concerned about my overall well-being.
Thank you. I mean, and you know, another comment that went to everyone, I think that really resonates is the fact that with the impact that COVID has had, this is absolutely even more timely. And thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm not sure if you know Michelle, but in Rotary, so thank you so much, everybody. Show of hands, show of claps. Thank you so much. What a wonderful program. In Rotary, our goal is to eradicate polio around the world. And in your honor, we will donate to have 33 children inoculated against polio. And with the Gates Foundation 2-for-1 match, that means 100 children will be inoculated against polio. Rotary has also been involved in helping with COVID vaccinations using the vaccination best practices that we've learned from polio. So it's been a really great journey to be part of that impact for our community the last year.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. I have some closing announcements. Next week we will be hybrid, so make sure you, as Troy mentioned, make sure you register by today at 4 if you want to be there in person. I hope we will see your face. The program is called Earth from Space: The Power of Perspective. It will be presented by Dr. Waleed Abdelati, Director of CIRES, University of Colorado. Our outgoing District Governor Bob Kemp will be joining us in person at that meeting. So it would be good for you to meet him as well if you haven't met him before. So please join me now in reciting the Rotary 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? With that, we're adjourned, and the executive team will meet in 7 minutes back on this line. So see you then. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.